Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. Today we're going to do a shrimp pasta recipe in like a cream sauce. And this is a style recipe that in North America anyway, often gets called Tuscan something. So like we did a recipe a little while ago called Tuscan chicken. This is Tuscan shrimp. And it has absolutely nothing to do with Italy at all. Not Italian in the least. But they use that word Tuscan to sort of denote a cream sauce with spinach and tomatoes and some sort of protein, sometimes served over pasta and sometimes served on its own. Not really sure where that came from, but I know that there are some fairly large chain restaurants in Canada and the United States that live on these Tuscan dishes. So it's not Italian though. Now, into this pan, I have put some oil, and I'm heating that up. I put some salt and pepper on the shrimp, and I'm going to toss that around to make sure that they are fully coated. But before I get to the shrimp, I have all of the shells and tails from the shrimp. I'm going to fry them in this oil. And the reason for that is I want to infuse the oil with as much flavor as possible. And instead of throwing these shells out, let's get all of the flavor out of them and into the dish. So in they go. And so I'll just toss them around. Doesn't take long to infuse the oil with the flavor. And you can smell it right away. Okay, we can get rid of the shells and try to shake off as much oil as you can. Leave it in the pan rather than on the shells. Okay, pan goes back on the heat. And this is induction, so it'll come back up to heat really quickly. Now we put the shrimp in, and you just want to fry them until they're pink around the outside. You don't want to overcook them. And just toss them around in the pan. That's why I really like this high-sided saucier. Now, if anything, at this stage I undercook. I don't want the shrimp to get too rubbery later, because we're going to put them back into the sauce and cook them in the sauce a little bit. So, I'm going to take them out. Again, trying to leave as much of that oil in the bottom of the pan filled with flavor, and I want that flavor for the sauce. Okay, back onto the heat. And to that I'm going to add maybe 1.5 tablespoons or 2 tablespoons of butter. And a couple of sliced up onions. And we'll just saute those onions to get them translucent. A couple cloves of garlic would go really well in this as well. Sometimes I put it in, sometimes I don't. Just depends on the day. In this pot I have salted water coming up to a boil. We need that in order to boil the pasta. Right now I'm going to add tomatoes, and these are just little cherry tomatoes or grape tomatoes. I'm going to put them in, and I'm just going to cook this now until the tomatoes start to explode a little bit. You can, at this point, also start to put in the spices. So I have some hot red pepper flakes, I have some paprika, and a little bit of oregano. You can play with that spicing to your heart's content. Leave some out, put some more in, put in a little bit of hot. If you like that heat, maybe a hotter pepper than the paprika. Put in a little bit of cayenne. And so I'm just going to keep tossing this together. I've got it over sort of medium heat. Just enough to cook the tomatoes relatively quickly, but not enough to burn it to the bottom of the pot. Okay, now I'm going to pour in some white wine. If you're someone who doesn't like white wine, you don't want to cook with white wine, you don't cook with alcohol, use a little bit of chicken stock or vegetable stock. That part at the beginning where I fried the shells in the oil, instead of doing that, put them in a little bit of water and simmer them in that water, and then use the water at this point. That's another way of delivering some flavor. And then just put in 1 tablespoon or 2 of your favorite type of vinegar, just to give that acidity to balance the whole thing out. So I'm going to bring this to a simmer. I'm going to scrape the bottom, get all of the brown bits off the bottom, the fond, and reduce that by about half before we move on to the next step. Looking good. So next in, I have some spinach, and get that in and let that spinach wilt down completely. And I'm also going to throw in, I've got some fresh peas from the garden. I'm going to throw those in because I really like peas and they're in season. Okay, I think it's time to put the pasta in. For some reason I grabbed fettuccine. It was the one that was at the top of the box. You could use pretty much any pasta that you want. I don't hold, especially since this isn't Italian, I don't hold any of those traditional pasta shapes as must use, so use what you've got, use what you like. Meanwhile, over the sauce, I'm going to grate in a good whack of, this is pecorino, but Parmesan, any sort of hard aged cheese works fantastic. Okay, now, shrimp goes back in, as well as any sort of juice that is down in the bottom of that bowl. I have some sliced up basil that I just pulled out of the garden and sliced up, chiffonade, if you want to be all fancy. And then I'm going to add some cream. About that much. And we'll stir this together. This is on just sort of a gentle heat at this point. I just want to finish cooking the shrimp a little bit and bring the sauce together. And the sauce will thicken up after we put the pasta in for the final cook. Okay, I'm going to say that pasta is pretty much done. So I'm going to put it in, and it'll carry over a little bit of the pasta liquid at the same time, which will help thicken the sauce. And so we'll cook the pasta the rest of the way in the sauce, get it to soak up some of those flavors. And I think we're ready to go. Hey, Jules.
Hey, Glenn. Hey, friends. Ready to go? That means it's time for me to come in. Listen, how you doing?
Excellent.
Forks?
I'm going to say that's a fork. Yeah, let's have a fork. Smells,
that's very pretty.
It smells really good, doesn't it? Okay.
Oh, are those peas? Fresh peas?
They are fresh peas. Loosely called Tuscan shrimp. But
okay.
It doesn't, that's a meaningless title other than it's, cream and spinach and tomato.
Cream, spinach, tomato. That sounds good. I'm trying to do it with some kind of grace. That's the hardest part.
That sauce is really good.
I'm sure it is. I am trying not to get a giant mouthful of pot. No, I'm making a mess. Yeah. I mean, spinach, peas, tomatoes, cream.
Yeah, a little bit.
You can't go wrong.
That white wine brings a little bit of acidity, and if you don't want to use white wine, do, like I said, chicken stock with a little bit of vinegar. And I've used shrimp, but you could, any protein.
Yeah.
Any protein works in this. And any kind of pasta. I used fettuccine, but, if you want to use shells or rotini or anything like that, feel free. Go right ahead.
There you go.
There are no rules. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon. I'm going to piece of bread in that sauce. Sop it up.
That'd be really good.
Yes.